Okay, folks, so welcome to grade 12 town hall. Again, just as far as parameters of this, what we're trying to do is some feedback from you. Some people may have been at these last year. It's feedback from the councils for the stuff that they do. Also feedback for me, because some of the decisions have to come for me eventually, and there's some questions about certain things that I can answer. So we want that. Just a reminder that we want always respectful of what you're saying, and always, it's also a good idea to mention some things that work, because you don't want to get rid of something. So sometimes if we want a new program, we have to eliminate one that we're running. But we want to know which are the ones that we don't want to get rid of because they're working very well. So it's good to have the positive stuff as well, okay? So we can go with that. Maybe everybody should introduce themselves. I mean, you probably know everybody anyway, but at least their positions, because the world is watching as well.
Hi, David, ESC VP.
Lily, ESC grade 12 rep.
My name is Naveen, I'm the athletic director for ESC. It's Roy Marcotte.
Okay, and again, just to hopefully improve the sound, I don't know if it's going to work that well, it's pretty echoey in here, but hopefully improve the sound, we're going to use the microphone. The wireless mic will be going around, so you're going to have to pass around again toward your face. So do you want to begin there, somebody?
Okay, so our first thing is just to talk about the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of getting the word out about our school events. So do you think councils and clubs are going to go on Twitter, social media, digital signs, and announcement apps are useful, and who actually has them? So who do you guys have a digital signage app?
Hello, do I have to like introduce myself or? Anyways, yeah, we were saying how like the Twitter stuff is effective, but we were saying how the digital signs above the cap is like some of the messages are extremely long. You have to stand there for like 2 minutes, wait for like stuff to scroll by.
So that's
the ones like that.
scrolling one?
Yeah, exactly. And like some of the TVs seem like unupdated. Like they were saying how this one's like never on, and it's like they don't update it as much as the other two TVs. I don't know, some of them in my class were saying.
Well, that shouldn't be the case because it's all running the same feed. There's one feed that's all running. I mean, the problem is that we're finding that we got to kind of reset some of them sometimes. So we're working with technology for sure. The one question is about location though of those things. We're going to put more. We want to put more. Just take some time with mounting and stuff like that to get the board people to do it. But where would be a good spot? Because we really don't have a center of the school, right? We don't have like an atrium or a mains gathering space.
We were saying how one effective place could be the cafeteria, even though it isn't allowed. A lot of people like find that they go there a lot, especially during spares as well as lunch. So like that'd be probably maybe just one or two.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good. Yeah. That's we put in a work order to put something there. I already got a TV. It's been sitting there for a few months waiting to get installed. So we're gonna put it there. The problem is with the cafeteria too is the size of the TV has to be a lot bigger. And when you get over like I have a 60-inch, 65 inches way to go in, you'd be surprised how small that was in the cafeteria. Like you think 65 inches is great in my basement, yeah, it would be. But in a thing that size, it's and then you get remarkably expensive. Like I looked at a 90-inch TV or whatever, and those are like $3,000. That's a tough check to write. So, but what about? I'm interested to hear about the app, and I'm hearing some feedback that some people are saying, "What app?" is what some people are saying, and then some people are saying it's hard to load, or I didn't load it right, it doesn't fit on my phone. Does anybody have it?
This is just from our class in general, but when we asked about it, no one had any idea what the app was or that an app existed. And a lot of people tend to say that though, like the councils do a great job of promoting major events like, well, I don't know if you count this as an event, but the city's days and like the smaller kinds of events, we had no idea they existed until an ESC member from our class would probably be like, oh yeah, this is happening tomorrow. And we'd be very confused because we're like, oh, we never heard about this. We didn't know this was happening. So we don't know if it's just our class or whether it was just like our grade, but we didn't know that some of the things that were happening were happening. So we were very uninformed about certain things.
So what would be a way to do that? Because we're hearing a lot of like announcements in the morning, people are like, I don't even listen to announcements in the morning. Or, they're so long that I miss something. Or the afternoon announcements, people are packing up, so they don't even, listen to it anymore. So we're hearing that's ineffective. What's a better way to do it? I know there's better ways. There's got to be better ways than that.
There's just so many announcements that we're just overwhelmed, and by the end of it, it's like, wait, what's happening with which? And we're just confused what's happening with everything.
So do you have a better idea? Like, what about the use of social media?
One idea I think could be implemented is like a calendar. So all clubs, councils, if they have events, they give them a calendar, everyone gets it. Like we have an agenda, but sometimes things get moved, things like that. So if it's like updated or something, it's on Twitter, we can check that out.
Yeah, I'm a little bit reticent. I like the idea of a calendar. There's a little bit of a security concern that I have about making a public calendar, so that the public, anyone, would be able to see events involving students. I get a little bit concerned about that. There's people out there who I don't want to have anything with them, right? I don't want to know that there's a group going out somewhere or that there's something happening. Or to be completely frank with you, I get a little nervous if people outside of the school know that there's a cities day going on. That's why I noticed we never put it on the board outside. Because then that means, it's a cities day, that means they're not in uniform, maybe it's a time I can blend in, I don't want intruders in school, all sorts of things. So perhaps there's a way to make a calendar that's contained within the school. I do know there's a way to make a calendar, like a Google calendar, that the only people who can see it are actually school members. But that would mean that everybody has to use their school-provided Google account. I don't even know if you all know you have one, but I don't know if we're there yet. You do know, by the way, you have a board-provided Gmail and your own account. Now you do.
Okay, so on the topic of announcements, so our class, we were saying it's really ineffective, not really ineffective, but it's ineffective in the morning because students are arriving late and not listening, and it's very loud. Same thing in last year because everyone was just busy packing up and trying to get out of school. So what someone suggested, I think it was in Brave or one of the other Catholic schools within our board, they do the announcements during second period. So that might be, and it might be unlikely, but I feel like that may be effective, because at that point, most students have already arrived at school, and because there's not really that much of a rush or urgency as there is in first period or last period, so I feel like students would be more inclined to listen.
Yeah, I was vice principal at BMT, at MT, and they do their announcements at the end of first period, not at the beginning. So just so you know, that's something that we could maybe try, but that requires a timetable change. Because right now, I don't even know if you've noticed, but your first period is 10 minutes longer than every other period. Because your first period, that's where you do homeroom stuff, and report card, all those sort of things. So we worked in extra time in your first period. So we could do that with second period, but we would just make second period longer. But that is a next year sort of thing, right? We have to have a certain thing. But we could work around that. That's one of the reasons too why I'd like to get rid of end of the day announcements entirely. Because the fourth period doesn't have that extra time. So in fact, teachers are coming to me saying, it's cutting out of my teaching time because you're doing 10 minutes of announcements at the end of the day. So the day doesn't actually go to 2:30. It really goes to 2:20. And really it's 2:15 because kids are packing up in anticipation of the announcements, all these sorts of things. So I'd like to be able to utilize the screens and the apps, other ways of doing announcements other than, in this day and age, to say that we can only get information at one time of the day, it's ridiculous, right? Nobody does that anymore. You can watch TV anytime you want. You can watch anything you want anytime you want. Why would you say, I can only get announcements for this one 10-minute period a day? And if I'm not there, or if I'm not engaged at that 10 minutes, I'm not going to get it. That doesn't really work.
What someone in our class suggested was the idea of emailing the teachers and having the teachers put something up around the classroom. Some teachers that may not be very effective, but if a teacher is emailed once at the beginning of the day, once at the end, then they would have what's it called? Sorry. Then they would remind not only the first period but their last period class as well. So just have someone send it out maybe during lunch, and whenever they check their email, they remind their class about it.
Yeah, the problem with that too is you've got to understand that not all teachers have access to computers all the time or printers all the time. I'm not a huge fan of printing things off. When I was a teacher at school that I taught at, we had written and oral announcements. So every morning I would get a legal war machine, both sides of announcements. And there would be 10 minutes of announcements in the morning. And it just got to the point where I think that if there's more mediums for people to put stuff in, they're going to put more stuff in. So it was ridiculous, like how many announcements we had. It was way more than me. Because people just throw it in there and go, yeah, just put it in there for 2 weeks. Yeah, whatever, it doesn't cost me anything, I'm just going to put it in for 2 weeks. But can you imagine printing that off? So there's 87 teachers in the school. So if I printed off 87 sheets twice a day, every single day, that's a lot of stuff, right? So I think there's ways to do sort of mix the new tech with basic technology, like an announcement board, like an actual board somewhere where you put things. Maybe there's a way to do that. It doesn't need to be always high tech, but there is technology that's really simple that makes things utilize that better. And I think with that app, I think what we need to do is get the word out a little bit better. I mean, it seems that people don't even know it's there. Or some people said it's kind of complicated because it's not just downloading the app, you have to actually do 2 or 3 setting things to get the right one. But if we had like a little YouTube video that was like 30 seconds to say, here's how you do it, blah, 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 tweeted it out from everybody, then I think it would work out a lot better. I think we'll at least try it.
Okay, so next we're going to move on to the second question regarding the athletics at our school. So anything missing at JP2 with regards to athletics, and is there more that the council could do to include more students in athletics?
Okay, so I think the athletic community is pretty good. And, I was in a badminton club for like 3 years, and I had to pay $30 before. But now I have to say I have to pay $45, and I just feel like that's a bit too high for one club because I only participate in one club. And I don't use the fitness room and go out of any other club, so I just think that's just
Yeah, I mean, that issue's been brought up before about the $45 athletic fee. I would tell you that is remarkably low, like compared to other schools. One school I was at, the athletic fee was a base of $50, and then every other team was $50 more. Because I'll tell you what, like the $45, you think $15 of that goes to, if you attend the athletic banquet or not, that's your business, but $15 goes to that. So if you think about the expense, the athletic fee probably covers 15% of their athletic budget. So if you think about just running a team, let's just say a basketball team, that's what I coach one of the teams, and you have 15 players on a team. If you're collecting $30 a player, figure out how much money that is. Now, if you get a bus to go to an event, that's $250 for the bus every single time, right? If you talk about uniforms, you talk about equipment. A tournament's somewhere between $300 and $500 every time. If they're good and really good and successful, and they get to like awesome, $105,000, right? To run that. So the amount of money that the school spends on to support the athletic program isn't even remotely close to what's collected by the athletic fee. And that athletic fee of $30 was that since I was a student, like 30 years ago. Dear God, was it 30? It was almost 30 years ago. So, yeah, like I mean, I know it seems like a lot, $45 seems like a lot, especially if you play one thing, but comparatively to other places, it's a small price of what we end up, the school budget that goes toward supporting the amount of teams that we have. But glad to do it because the amount of people we have have made school kind of what it is in a lot of different ways. But understand that that's where that expense comes from.
My class was saying that there should probably be more transparency in terms of like what the athletic fee is used for, like where the $45 goes towards, just so people really know where it's going towards and why they're paying more than they were last year and the years before. Because as the athletic fee went up, people don't really know why. So if more transparency was present, then I think people would understand more like as to why it went up.
That's a great point, and I know that ESC is, the treasurer is doing an article for the next paper about where City's Day money goes to and all that sort of stuff, so that people understand that. I think it's a good point too, and people have asked, where does my activity fee go? Right, the $100 activity fee that we pay. Great questions, right? And the activity fee goes to a number of different things, like yearbook, agenda book, all sorts of things, retreats. It also goes to supporting a lot of different programs. I mean, the comparison that I would make, and anybody who has elementary school kids will get this, was like elementary school, you pay for everything, and you got to stock everything now. I mean, my kids are all in elementary school. At the beginning of the year, we got to buy Kleenex, we got to buy pencils, we got to buy all these things, and then it's pizza lunch here, it's this, it's fundraising, it's all the time. And I would prefer they just tell me, just give me $100. Seriously, just stop asking for money all the time. And that's, to be honest with you, now that we know the budget, the block budget is what it's called, is what the ministry gives me to run the school, shrinks all the time. We would no way be able to support the school and run some of the programs that we do and the events that we run. So for instance, like talent night or those things, international night, the things that it takes to run that. So for instance, like security, it's not covered by the cost of the ticket, it just isn't, right? It's subsidized by those sorts of things. So it all goes towards that. But I think you're right. I think there might be a really valid argument to say there's maybe an article in the paper that says, here's where these funds go. Absolutely. It's a good point. I'm going to write that down.
Is there anything on intramurals or open gyms? Is there anything you guys do that like?
I don't know, sorry, I missed that question, but you mentioned International Night and Talent Night, and I just wanted to bring this up because a lot of people in our class specifically were very upset with the fact that it was put together. I understand that was more of what's it called, you didn't have enough people in order to cover and do both events, but a lot of people were kind of upset. They were leaning towards the idea of you should do one or the other because they found that Talent Night took away from the individuality and the importance of international.
Well, as a council, we would love to have both the events because all the students obviously love it, but it's just scheduling. There's a lot going on. Once you put in May, there's just too much going on at that point, and there is enough people to run the events. It's just the conflict of the scheduling. But having International Night at the Pavilion beforehand and the talent show after, that's just how we put it together.
Yeah, and on the point of International Night, I feel that more people are less inclined to try out for International Night because they feel like they have to have an act that focuses on a specific culture. But by reserving the night for solely talent, then it opens up for other people to try out, and they're not limited by not being able to come up with a cultural component to talent.
This is just the question from the class that we talked about in first period. I think it was 2 days ago. Is it possible to bring back the rugby team? Because, well, after the coach retired, there hasn't been anyone that's in charge of rugby. And I think I remember, I was in grade 9. There was this female teacher that did cheerleading, and they're we're hoping that is it possible to bring back rugby and the cheerleading, so that's possible.
Like everything, that's absolutely possible. But you hit the nail on the head, right? It is, you need to have coaches who will do it. Particularly with rugby, you can't just have, in some sports you can have a teacher who sort of, can oversee it, but really, the students can do it. Maybe a senior student will help the junior team, those things. You can't do that with rugby. It's too dangerous. You need to have skilled people who are experienced with that, who are willing to take on the responsibility of coaching the students about how to do it properly, right? More people get hurt in rugby by far than any other sport, it's not even remotely close. And oftentimes the reason that people get hurt is they don't know what they're doing. Right? They don't know how to tackle or how to take a tackle. And that's where usually you get hurt, right? Dislocated shoulders, broken bones, those sorts of things happen because people don't really know how to do it properly. Because more people are playing rugby recreationally now, but it's not the same sort of thing. It's not like basketball or volleyball or those sorts of things. It's all about having coaches. That's entirely what it is. If there's teachers who are willing to take that on, then it will happen. And these things go in sort of ebbs and flows. When I was a student here, there was a rugby team, and then it kind of went away, and it comes back again. When Dr. Clovis came here, and maybe it'll come back again, but it's all ebb and flow. And it's not so much anything that the office can dictate to say, yes, we're going to have a rugby team, or yes, we're going to have a cheerleading team. It's all about who's here.
Just need I was saying one thing. You know how the question says, is there more that the council could do to include more students in athletics? Well, I think that, there's like some students that are interested in sports. It's just that they don't want to show it. So what the class suggested that the council should have like a motivational speech to the students that love to like play sports. So I'm just hoping that the council was able to do it, like create a speech for the students to come out of their shells and participate in the athletics.
That's not a bad idea, actually. We have the athletic committee, the Panthers athletic committee, where we encourage students to come out if you like athletics and say you don't like to be out in public. It's everybody on the committee basically comes out for an interview. It's just themselves only with a couple of members on ESC. And you try out to be on Panthers athletic committee. So if you're interested in sports, you're interested in leadership, and trying to get that motivation, that's where you can go. If you guys do want like a public thing, I guess we could organize that.
Yeah, we could, because we do have the tech and the publicity committees, and that's their sole job to increase media in the school. So if you would like that published, then that's something that they could do possibly as one of their next projects.
Yeah, the sole purpose of committees was to get more people involved. So not just the council, but the council branches off into different committees where you can still get involved.
So continuing on what you were saying about the rugby team and how you responded to it, I was just wondering if I would be correct saying how we hired a coach for the basketball team. Is it possible to hire a coach for the rugby team?
So we don't hire a coach for the basketball team. So there's a community volunteers who come in and they want to do that. We have it in a need to, for the most part, really most of the time, those community coaches, at least in this school district, have been designated to basketball. There's a different layer that you have to go through, like for an adult to volunteer in the school. I mean, there's certain things they have to do. They have to get clearance from the media, they have to have police clearance, and all those sorts of things. And so there's different levels to that. But there hasn't been any interest from the community coming to me or to the athletic director or anybody to say we could do a rugby thing. But that happens. Like maybe if somebody knows, if somebody belongs to a rugby club and they have some input, they might. Somebody might want to do that. They may not know that we're looking for that, right? So, if you have contacts or if people have contacts, then you should talk to. The athletic directors are Mr. McLean and Mr. Hackett, and they're the ones who run all the athletics. So, give it to them. Maybe there's a way to do that. You're not the first grade that's asked for the rugby committee. I think the grade 9s and 10s as well. We're asking about that. I think because it's one of those sports where it's a big team, there's lots of people that are involved, and it's not necessarily. I think what happens when you become high level, like Pope has in a lot of sports, there's sort of the assumption that the teams are already made, right? I mean, you got club guys coming out to play ball or volleyball and those sorts of things. So the sense is that there's no place for somebody to learn how to play sport unless it's a new sport. Not a lot of people play rugby, so you can learn how to play rugby and play on a team. Like if you're going to learn how to play basketball, you're not going to play on the varsity team. But you might be able to play on a rugby team because not many people play rugby. And so maybe there's an idea to invest in some of those sports to look at. That was the value of it, but it's all about coaching.
So like a suggestion one of my classes had was like kind of like a pep rally for the team because like they don't get as much appreciation. Like let's say a team won OFSA or something. Like they'll just be heard that they won OFSA, but like, if anything, they'll go to athletic back and have something for them there. But the people who go to athletic back are gonna be athletes only, right? Compared to like if you have your school there. And also like it puts it out for like other students what teams there are. Because not everyone knows what teams there are. Like maybe they'll put announcements for there's tryout. Or like what if they were away that day? So at least they know that there's such team and such thing like that, right?
Yeah, we were talking council after pep rally about what we did and didn't like, and that was one thing that we thought we should add next year. So once we're on, but having teams, showing spirit for basketball, volleyball, all that, and I guess the athletic committee could do something about like getting the tryouts in, maybe a list, things like that, times of tryouts.
I mean, if you think about it, really where like pep rallies, we want to see like pep rallies done a certain way. They're kind of invented in the States, right? In like American high school, and they're completely centered around athletics, right? It's about and in a lot of places it's the football team or whatever the basketball team, depending on where you are, and then it's all about that. I like the idea that we have more focus than just on the athletics on the team, because like some people have said, that's a pretty select group of students who are on those teams. But I do like what you said about the fact that you need to celebrate those accomplishments a little bit more publicly. So maybe we should look at ways to do that, for sure.
Okay, moving on. So what questions do you have about the school in regards to decisions made or events run? Would you suggest anything more?
I was just wondering, because I have fourth grade spare, we're wondering if we could have a second chance to actually stay in the CAP because we got kicked out. And the reason we do stay in the CAP is because we have after school activities. And if not, then can the people who weren't making disruptions at least get their chance to stay at the CAP?
Okay, yeah, I mean, the issue with, there is an issue there with fourth period and with spares. The problem is two things, the supervision and cleanliness. So the caretakers have a small window of time. Because you've got to remember, at the most, there's 3 caretakers to this entire school at one time. And that's not very often, it's usually just 2. And then at night, they do some more things. So to clean up the cafeteria after lunch, they have this window of time, which is really kind of the beginning of fourth period, essentially, is what it is, because then they have to anticipate stuff after school, right? And so the question is cleaning it up. They were fine with letting kids stay in there. The problem is that they clean it up and then it would be messy because people would just leave stuff. It's really disgusting if you look at some of the stuff that, I don't know what people do, but they just eat something and just literally just walk away from it. They don't even, it's garbage, they don't even do it. So the caretakers are having to clean and then they go back in there and they clean again. The other problem with that is supervision. So legally, you have to be supervised at all times when you're in school. At all times. And I don't have the staff to have somebody sit in a cafeteria. Now, I understand, if you're gonna stick around after school, we have to have an option for it. The library is an option, but it's not always an option. Maybe there's a class in there, maybe it's closed because there's some event in there. But that is one option. We need to figure out what we can do, and I totally get that, for sure. That's why, one of the reasons is that's why I wanted this area to be more utilized. That's why we got to the tables. We have to do a better job of that because this is an area that can be technically supervised. There's cameras and our student supervisors are going through the hallways and stuff like that. There's staff around, so it's better than the cafeteria. Because the cafeteria doors closed, those things, it compromises the security. And the fact that the caretakers cleaned that after lunch, and they were fine with it, and the caretaking sector is amazing. And they were like, yeah, no problem. But then they were going back in again and having to clean it again because people were making use of mess, really disturbing mess. So we've got to figure that out, as an option. I would say though that if you're sticking around because you have a function, great. If you're sticking around just because you want to leave your friends, you should go. Some people are like, oh, I'm sticking around because I'm getting a ride home. Well, no, you should go. And there's a bus system like that that works pretty well. So. I don't like it when the students are going to stick around in fourth period just because. If you have something to do, if you're on a team, if you're on a club, or if you're on a school-sponsored event, absolutely. Otherwise, you got to be there. The other question is I was getting complaints from teachers in classes saying it's so loud, we can't. And this is people in the cafeteria and teachers in classrooms were saying it's too loud. So you can imagine how loud it is. So, you make your own beds.
You talked about supervision, but the people who have first grade experience don't have supervision either, so it has to go both ways. So I understand you want to resolve the fourth grade experience, but it's hard to resolve people who have first and second and third.
Well, first and second and third, the cafeteria is open, right? So the cafeteria is not open in fourth period. That's the issue, right? So there's no cafeteria staff there. First and second and third there is. And so there's a different flow of that. It's not open in the fourth period. They're gone. And at that point, it should be clean. So there's a different use of that space. I'm not throwing that either, to be honest with you. I wish there was a place that I could guarantee that something was supervised at all times, because that is my responsibility. I have to accommodate that. But we're trying to figure that part out, but I'd like some input on what we could do. And if it's just, well, just look the other way, don't worry about us, that's not something we
There were two things that our class are a little concerned about. One of them, which a lot of people agreed with me on, was the washrooms, just kind of keeping them cleaner and ensuring there's actually soap and toilet paper in there, and that the mirrors aren't completely destroyed. Because since grade 9, we haven't had a decent mirror, probably before that. And the second thing that someone raised in our classroom was, what's happening to the councils? Is there going to be, when are we having elections? Just because how is the council going to continue when there's no one to sort of mentor the next kind of generation, considering pretty much everyone on the council is grade 12.
Well, for the council, it is elected. All grades are allowed to try for position, and elections are in May and in early June. So we have council members and a lot of people who have been involved with different clubs. They are aware of what happens around our school and such.
And the nice thing about this year is that we've implemented the committee system. So we've sort of brought on a bunch of students to help us with certain branches that our council incorporates. But because their involvement in the committee doesn't necessarily guarantee them a spot on ESC, but it does give them a taste of how council is run and how to do certain events. So they do have that experience. And for the most part, grade 9, 10, and 11s are involved in those committees. So, and we do have a mentorship phase around the end of the year, which will allow us, so any grade 12s who are still at school, to work side by side with the elected council. So there's still that a lot of time for us to teach them everything we need to do. And also with the formation of our constitution that we plan to do by the end of the year, it kind of serves as like a handbook that other councils and future students can use in order to facilitate different things the council say right now.
And I think maybe that's where communication can come in handy too, is the fact that, instead of having, what was happening before was there was kind of a bunch of different councils doing different things. And really, they're not, if you're not elected, it's really not a council, right? It's really a group. And so what the idea was here is to have the elected council still have the same basic responsibilities, but then break those responsibilities up and then have committees where kids can volunteer. Because maybe they're not really sure about student government, or they think student government, well, I'm not popular enough, in my mind, I'm not popular enough to do that. I don't know if somebody would vote for me. I don't want to put myself out there, but I would like to help and maybe learn more about it, and maybe get into that crowd of those kids to be able to help. That's what that committee is for. So you don't have to run for anything. And really the time commitment is, I'm only going to do these things. Because if you're on the council, you're doing a whole lot of stuff. Like these guys are here doing these things, and they're like, so and you know what you're getting into. But committee is a way to sort of put your toe in the pool. In regards to bathrooms, I absolutely agree with you, and we have to do better things with that. I would say this though, the reason why mirrors are written on and scratched, that's not wear and tear, that's people writing on them and scratching on them and ruining them. So there's something to be said for taking care of your space. We hope people do, but I do recognize the fact that we need to invest a little bit more in that, and we definitely will. I'm hearing that now that I don't spend a lot of time in the girls' bathrooms, and they're saying that there's need for mirrors or things like that, and absolutely we're gonna look at that for sure. You do have to know one thing about mirrors though, a rather sad fact about mirrors is you'll probably notice that a lot of the mirrors aren't glass mirrors. There's a reason for that, there's a rather sad reason for that, is because what was happening was, and it happened at school, not in our work, but girls were breaking the glasses, they could get the glasses cut, and one girl tried to commit suicide by doing that. So then they took the glass mirrors out of the bathrooms. You'll also notice that's why there's not, it's a sad thing to say, but there's not, on the back of the stall doors, there used to be hooks to hang your bag or coat. They don't have that anymore. Because somebody tried to hang themselves off that door. And so they really mandate that. Literally people, the boards will say, okay, that's it, they're all gone. Because of it's sad realities of that. But it's important to know. Like it seems like, wow, it's so stupid. Why wouldn't you just put a hook? It seems like there's reasons for some of those things, but not all. There's some things that we can fix.
I was just one concerned back to the student council. I think I like the idea of the whole internship thing where you kind of guide the younger generations, but I just think the timing is kind of wrong. I don't think you should do it near the end of the year, because at the end of the year, a lot of the grade 12s are busy with like prom or graduation and stuff like that. I think kind of at the beginning of the year, just like kind of throughout the year, just let newer generations kind of internship a little bit, like kind of help out where they can, so they can get a feel of how the kind of council should be, rather than just trying to shove it at the end of the year.
Yeah, so it's very valid. So I guess that plays more on how involved the students are in general. So maybe if we could, I guess, integrate more ways to get our branches out to the student population, so that would definitely help. And you're right about how busy grade 12s are at the end of the year. So possibly, maybe we could push back elections. I don't know how feasible that is, but it's an option to look at in terms of resolving that issue of trying to get all our younger generations to be as informed as we are, so that when next year comes, like they're just as prepared. So it's
I mean, it sounds like the idea about getting the word out about the new council and about what's committee structure and stuff. Maybe there's a function of creating, I don't know, like the way it does, like a university, for instance, they'll have like what's called like rush week or whatever. So it's like the second or third week of school, like all the clubs and stuff have like at the student commons, they have booths out there. So you can join this, you can join this, you can join this. The fraternities and sororities do that too, right? They have all these sorts of things. So maybe there's a possibility of doing that, right? Maybe there should be at the beginning, and this is because they're kind of making this up as they go now, right? They're trying to create this new function, this new constitution for their government. It could be at the beginning to say the tech crew has a booth out there, all these crews, and you could sign up your name just as an interest with an email address or something like that, and then the committee could send out, and people could respond or not, say, no, that's not for me, or yeah, that's an event I could be in on. So maybe there's a way to gather, and then you're mentoring as you go through the course of the year. It's practical mentoring, right? It's about, we're doing this event, so we're gonna have that. Good.
Our class was talking about the issue of teachers following their students on social media, like not even class related, just teachers making their own accounts and follow their students, and their students say something and they'll police them. And I understand that like you want to save your school, you don't want cyberbullying, and class accounts are really effective because it gets the word out about like dates and stuff. But then when teachers take that and they start like figuring your students' tweets, or like I've seen teachers police their students who aren't even students anymore, and I think that's extremely appropriate as well.
Well, I would say, all the staff has been we've talked to about social media and some of that, proper ways to do that, and probably things to get that staff could get themselves in trouble with. Don't bother with certain things, privacy settings and all those things. I would say this though, and this is a real good lesson that you guys need to learn, and with the amount of issues that I'm dealing with, you just don't learn it, is people think social media is private. It isn't. It's never private. Ever, 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 ever private. And people think it is. And they're shocked when we find out about something through social media. It's, well, if you're going to put something on social media, it should be, I'm willing to have it on the front page of the newspaper with my face attached to it. Because, to be honest with you, most social media has a greater distribution rate than most major newspapers. Right? It's faster for a comment that you put on social media to get to the rest of the world than it would be if you took out a national newspaper. So why people are shocked? Seriously shocked. Who's coming in with like dismay? Like, how dare you find this out on my Twitter? You put it on your Twitter. There needs to be, and you guys have grown up with this, and maybe it's a little different. And in a lot of ways, adults are better at the security around social media, probably because they don't trust it the same sort of way, because we didn't grow up with it. It's a little bit like, ooh, what's this stuff? Whereas it's just become innocuous with you guys, where it's just there, it's always been there. And so you sort of have a trust with it, which I don't think is helpful. I mean, I use it more than most adults, right? I'm more adept at it than most. And it still shocks me that you guys, you know how to use it, but you're getting used by it so often. So I would say, if you're getting called on something, good for the teachers for calling you on it. That's a great lesson, and you need to learn that it's not private. Like nothing is private. As soon as you hit submit or send or tweet or post, nothing. So I mean, we gotta get a little bit better at that.
Oh, yeah, some of the students in my class want to know the current status on senior prank day and like what your regards are to that.
On senior prank day?
I don't really care, but you know, I mean, other students do, you know. I wouldn't show up.
I would say this. I would say two things with senior prank day. Well, one, it got in the last couple of years got a little bit out of hand. The fact that my biggest concern about it is the caretakers were doing 10 times as much work so that people could have a senior prank day. And I don't think it's fair to them. Also, I would argue that if you're waiting for my stand on senior prank day, it's not all that impressive a prank day if you're waiting for the principal to give you permission to do prank day. My suggestion is this, and what I'd like to be able to do is, and I get the idea of wanting to blow off steam at the end, and really in a way you're thinking that it's celebrating the school. I think so. The problem was is I've got video and pictures of what the school looked like after the last day of school last year. That's not a celebration. Like people were turning over garbage cans and just spreading it all over the hall. And I'm not even joking, right? Taking the garbage cans that were full because everybody's emptying their lockers and just dumping. So now our two caretakers have to spend all their time cleaning that stuff up. My suggestion, and what I would hope to do, and I'm going to talk to the council a little more, is to have like a senior fair barbecue day out on the field. So there's like, you know, inflatable dunk tank, all those things. It's just for the grade 12s. You could have a water fight if you want to watch, because it's out there, it's controlled, and at least we know we have a way to do it. But when it's just like that, when it's maybe the senior run like through the hall screaming and do it 3 times. What's the point of that? Like if you did it, how would you do it again? Right? And then there's some safety issues too, because the year before people were doing stuff like in the stairwell, like they were putting like oil and grease on the stairs. That's incredibly dangerous. Actually, we had one staff member who fell on the stairs because of that stuff. And that's because then people get sued. Guess who gets sued? You don't get sued. I get sued. So we're not gonna have that. That's not gonna happen. But I think the idea of, and one of the other principals probably said, yeah, that's big, they have a senior frame. And we have the space to do it, right? I mean, we have a big field and track parking lot. I think we can do something a little bit that would be more fun too, I think, for everybody, a little bit more organized, and it's something that we can contain, and it's not putting a whole bunch of work on the caretakers who already have way too much work.
And last thing I want to just pick up is about the portables in terms of like air conditioning. One of my portables has whiteboards that are like basically melting away, and they're actually ripping down. It's really bad.
Yeah. So those boards we're fixing. So we've got a new thing that's going to go up in the next over Christmas break. So you come back and fix. The portables too, we are going to get newer portables. I wish we could say we're not going to get portables and they're going to take them away and build the addition that they're supposed to have. Remember, there's supposed to be another addition to school. There's a 4th phase. It's supposed to be right up there, actually. That's why there's a hallway there that goes nowhere. And there's a big empty grass area. They wonder, why is there a big empty grass area there? That's why, because there's supposed to be another wing with an auditorium and all those things. Never happened. I'm pushing for that. But we are going to get newer portables. So what happens is they've got newer portables in some of the elementary schools that we're getting like new wings and stuff put on. Those are all done now, so we're going to get new ones. Ours are old. And they're better. They have a better airflow system and all those things. In fact, they're probably more comfortable in the school, to be completely honest with you. And they have to reorganize how those are put. I don't know who organized those portables, but I am shocked at all who did buy them. Well, seriously, you're parking in between portables. That is like rule number 1, do not do that. But, so they've already addressed that. They talked to me last year. So they have to fix some stuff in the parking lot first. There's a little bit of erosion issue in the back there. They've got to get settled up, and they're going to get new ones. Sorry, it probably won't be by the time you guys graduate.
Back to like the senior prank day thing. Like I like the idea of having like a senior day just for like grade 12s, which is great. But like senior prank day, like I view it as kind of like a rite of passage for grade 12s, and that's something I've been looking forward to, and I've heard of it since like when I was in elementary school. So I don't think, no offense to that, like I don't think it's fair to like take away senior prank day, but I guess if there's like an issue with some of the pranks that are being performed, maybe it would be also a good idea to still have them do pranks, but give you like an outline or like specific pranks that they're thinking of doing so you can kind of approve it, so that you don't turn up the next day and people are putting oil everywhere or like whatever else would be a safety issue. So that it's still a surprise for students, but at least you know what to expect and what's going on.
Yeah, I would say that that's what we did. And always the problem with senior prank day, that even when I was a VP here, is the people who are organizing it, great, but it's the other people. So it's people who had nothing to do with the organization, never came and talked to me, or Mr. McAlpine, when he was principal here, had nothing to do with that. Decided to just jump in and do stupid things, right? That's what it was. So the people who select that, who put things around the school that are inappropriate and all those things, weren't the ones who came and said, this is what we'd like to do, and that's fantastic. I mean, it says a lot that the students come to the principal and say, this is what we'd like to do, and we have a committee that's gonna clean up after it, great. But the problem is, it's the others who do it. And I would say, I would sort of challenge that idea of the rite of passage. If that's your rite of passage, is like slipping the stairs and throwing garbage around, I might want to reflect on what that rite of passage is. What are you passing on to?
No, but it's like
You're defaulting.
Like, you know, when you get to grade 12, you think of all the things that grade 12s do. So you have like senior prank day, prom, and you have like all like grade 12 specific things. And I kind of do like senior prank day is one of those things. So like, I know it's not cool to have like oil put on the stairs and stuff, but like at the same time, it's not fair to like take away senior prank day from like all the other seniors that didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, and I would say fair is a relative term, and if I could control fair, then I would do fair, but I can't, right? So, but I can say, I have to keep the school safe, right? For the other 1,300 people that are here, and it just isn't when it's like that. So I think that there's room for both, and we like, you know, to have more conversations about it for sure, but I like the idea of being able to sort of have an event in the school, because remember, you know, you have graduation, that doesn't happen in school, and you have prom, that doesn't happen in school. To have an event that is yours in the school itself, the building that you're spending 4 years, I think we should do something.
My class was also talking about like music in the mornings. We're saying how we should have a say in what music is played in the morning because it's the same songs over and over again. So we're saying that maybe we should like do something in order to get students involved in choosing music.
Yeah, I would say that you can make suggestions for sure. There was a time in the school where students picked the music entirely, and it was a disaster. It was an absolute unmitigated disaster because I don't think you guys even realize where inappropriate lies and where it offends. Because I don't even know sometimes what's in those songs until an adult hears it and goes, wait a minute, you can't be playing that. I see it with my own kids, right? My kids are elementary students and they're in the car and they're singing songs. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, you're not supposed to be talking about that, right? And you're 8. Because they don't even know what they're saying, they're just saying the words, right? Because they just know the tune. And I think sometimes if that happens, so I'll tell you this for sure, suggestions are great. Will there be a time while I'm the principal that the students will be picking music? No. But you can make suggestions for sure, but I'm just not gonna open that up.
It's not like we have to pick all the music, but like it's instead like giving suggestions, giving it for your approval.
Yeah.
Right? So students have to say it's student voice.
Yeah, and Mr. Who picks it, Mr. Folk, who runs our music department, he's the one who sort of does that. It's a big thing. I mean, you might think it might be easy to pick music, but to actually come up with the music, bring it up, and put it in there, and like he does that every single morning today. So if you know Mr. Folk, make suggestions, or one suggestion would be you tweet it JP Pulse, right? Put it in there, say, hey, well, how about this for a song? How about this for a song? Send it to me. That's fine. Suggestions are great, but there will be a staff member who curates that for sure.
This is just something that I noticed that I thought we should kind of address. Sorry, as a school, you make decisions, and we end up hearing about the decision. However, we don't really understand the reasoning behind it sometimes, and that can cause a lot of conflict, and people react to a certain way that's normally very negative. And we kind of like to hear a bit more about what is the reasoning behind this decision.
Again, so that's kind of what this is for. One of the reasons that this is for. I would say JP Pulse, use it because I monitor that too, right? So I have an aggregator on my computer computer that will show when someone uses that Twitter feed. And so I see it all the time. So if you have a question, ask. Like, and to be frank too, come on up and ask. Absolutely. And if there's a question about it, even ask maybe the newspaper. And I write an article in the newspaper saying this is why I made this decision. They're not all my decisions, right? At the end of the day, I sign the checks and I hire people. That's kind of what I do, right? So there's a lot of decisions that are made that eventually I guess I need to answer for because I'm the one person who sits in that chair. But by all means ask. I have no problem. Explaining any of that stuff for sure. And so I've never made a decision that I wouldn't stand up and say this is why I made the decision, or this is why the decision was made. It wasn't us that made sense. But sometimes there's stuff that has nothing to do with us. It's just it's handled. But I'd love to hear about it for sure. But then maybe we need to look for a way to do that other than the needs. Well, thank you guys so much. Sorry about what about the microwave? So who's gonna clean them up? Maybe it's a microwave. Maybe it's a microwave committee.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna look at that. Maybe look at the new pack stuff entirely. Yeah. Thanks, guys.